my room, no trace left here of you. Cold gone, another person or two, seems like I'm the only one home. Aligned with the sun, shadows on everyone, no reason to run, hide out inside. Just stay at home, so lost and alone. Be here, unknown, don't tell us all. Bad taste, can't seem to get it out. Blank space where you shut my mouth. Filled yours with love to spit it out. I thought we wanted the same thing. Trust me, it's alright. Goodbye, now let me try to sleep. But don't care to say goodnight. It would be a lie. Another fleeting dream. Trust me, it's alright. Goodbye, you never meant anything. You mean nothing to me. Just stay at home, so lost and alone. Be here, unknown, don't tell us all. Been so down since you left, can't get out of this hole. Stay safe at home, so lost and alone.
Guys, is it actually happening? Gundogan back to Manchester City? Question mark. It seems like that is going to be what is going to be happening in today's stream. An unexpected Gundogan specific stream. We are going to be discussing the implications of Gundogan's return on the rest of the City squad. How does it improve City? Does it improve City? What are the positives? What are the negatives? How does it impact the minutes of some of our younger players, Phil Foden potential, etc., etc. As you are coming in, guys, please leave a like on the video. We are going to go over to my touchscreen tactical board and have a look at the current composition of City squad. Where are the minutes going to go to, etc., 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 etc. And this is also a conversational back and forth show, so feel free to get your thoughts in as we go throughout today's stream. It's happening, says Matty. Yes, sir, says Quinton. If it does happen, guys, it's just... It's such an unusual situation. Get your honest thoughts in right now, guys. Is there anyone here who isn't happy with the deal, first of all? We are going to discuss the negatives, because there are some negatives. But in my opinion, spoilers, TLDR, the positives heavily outweigh the negatives, and this would be it would be stupid for City to not do this deal at this stage of the transfer window, in my opinion. Let's just roll that back a little bit though, because in my opinion, if you said, for example, absolutely, Connor, yes, mate. Yeah, for the rest of the stream, let's just operate under the assumption that Gundogan is coming, because that seems likely, and it's just helpful to operate under that assumption. Now, if you said before the start of the transfer window, you can either have, Nobbins, speaking to you in the third person or whatever, you can have either Gundogan come back, or you can sign Bruno Guimaraes, or that sort of player. Who would you sign? In my opinion, the correct answer would be Bruno Guimaraes, because it's about the long-term thinking and the long-term direction. Whilst Gundogan's still a fantastic player, obviously there's still a long-term implication there. But the stage we are at now in the window, whether it's correct to be in this position or not, we are in this position. We're in a position where it's looking like sign no one or sign Gundogan. Now, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, we need to sign someone, because Rodri will literally perish in his own football boots if we keep him going as we have been doing the past however many the past year or so. So the stage right now, we have to bring him in. If the option is don't sign anyone, sign Gundogan on a short-term deal, then obviously you do that. Because who would you rather have? No one, or someone who we know full well can do the Gundogan role pretty well because it's in his name. So clearly the solution is to, clearly, I mean, Mussi's just said there, they gave Bruno Guimaraes the captain's armband. Yes, so it's looking like City have looked to that and gone, no, we're not particularly interested right now in the price as it was. I still think that's a mistake. But as Smian says here, get Bruno next summer or an alternative. Now, I know, for example, that City are very interested in the idea of Adam Wharton at Crystal Palace, who's a very exciting young player, but the emphasis there is on young and also inexperienced in the top flight. He's only played like half a season at Palace, or was it a full season? I can't recall. He hasn't had that many games in the Premier League. It would be a mistake, I think, for his career to come to City right now, when really he should be developing for a year and then maybe move to a bigger club, whatever, or a stronger side the season after or the season after that. So I'm envisioning this is the dream scenario. This is the dream scenario. We sign Gundogan on a 1 to 2 year deal as a stopgap short-term solution. And then 2025 rolls around and we bring in the actual heir. Now, whoever that is, whether that's Bruno Guimaraes, whether it's Adam Wharton, whoever that may be, as long as the club are still working in the background on making a long-term solution work, then I think there's no real true downside to this deal. It depends on the contract length, and it depends on minute playing expectations. A Gundogan he's going to be 34 in October, so he's not going to be starting every single game for City, and one assumes there isn't going to be an understanding from Gundogan's camp that he will be starting every single game. So I think I can't see too many issues with the deal. As I say, we will get into the composition of City's squad in a moment, and we'll have a chat about who are the winners, who are the losers in this situation, because there's at least one player in that squad where I couldn't really see a position for him in his main position or main role before this potential Gundogan signing, and I certainly can't see it if Gundogan comes in. So we shall see what we see. I can't see a Gundogan type doing well at City, says Connie, you're such a fraud. Wharton's great. It means we win everything, says Wildham. Kovacev going to need a break. Absolutely. Ideally, Rodri signs, Gundogan signs, and Pep signs. Oh yeah, long-term contracts. That would be lovely, William. Absolutely. After a full season, is he going to want to be a backup, says DJ? But it might be a good profile picture, by the way. But surely there would be an understanding. He'd be what, 35 in his second season, comeback last dance gig. He would surely. He is a very intelligent man. He would surely understand more than anyone else that he can't be the main guy in the team. I'm sure he understands that now, to be honest. I don't think Gundogan's coming to City to assume that he's going to be starting every single game. Like he will know. I think he should know his role in the squad. So we shall. And Samir says, as expecting Gundogan to return as a manager. Yeah, again, this is the ideal situation. Signs a 1 to 2 year deal. This season, he has more of a role. Season after becomes more of a squad option, and we bring in the proper heir. And then the season after that, he retires from football. He's already retired from international football. That was announced yesterday. He retires from football, and he takes a coaching role at the club somewhere. The word for that's guys, wouldn't it just be wonderful if Pep Guardiola signs an extension, because he can't leave Gundogan hanging. He can't re-sign his first ever signing and then leave. He's got to sign at least a 1 year extension, and then why not sign a further extension and have Gundogan as your assistant manager? Wouldn't that be a lovely time? That's almost definitely dreamland thinking there. I'm just being a dreamer there and an idealistic person there, but that would be a really nice thing if that could happen. What I want to do now, though, guys, we will talk about how does this impact City's squad. But I think in the first instance, so stick around. But in the first instance, let's go look at the tactical board, and let's see where where he now fits into this squad, etc. So we're just going to go over, as I say, to my tactical board. If I click that button, it should work. I'll see you on the other side. Like a few seconds. Oh, I'm so intelligent. I've not turned my camera on, have I? Oh, I had to turn it off and then on. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. This is such a shambles. There we go. Nice. I would just need to make it not blurred as well. There we go. And boom. Lovely. There we have it. I'm so intelligent, guys. Boom. Right. We are out here. Hello. You can see my hands and everything. Isn't this good? So this is, as you can see, I believe, if there's anyone I'm missing here, guys, please let me know. But I believe this is the entirety of Manchester City's senior first team squad. I am including, O'Reilly and McAtee because Pep said that they are going to be involved. So I think that this is everyone that would be included in the squad, including Gundogan. I'm also including Bob for these purposes. I know he's been injured, but it's still fair to include him. I'm also just going to get the chat just so I can see you guys properly. 1 second. There we go. Perfect. Now I can see you guys as well. And let me just bring over my Fanta. There we go. Great. There's over 300 people watching. I think LB gave us a cheeky raid. Thank you. Shout out to LB. He's my boy. Leave a like on the video, guys. It does really help. I'm only a baby boy. Leave a like on the video. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, guys. Yeah, so this is the composition of Carson Plays Basketball. Okay, Scottish City fan. Chill. Chill. Where's Phillips? Where do you think he's at Ipswich? Oh, yeah, and there's no Cancelo here. Sorry about that. Spoilers there. So how does this impact the composition of City's midfield, obviously, because that's where Gundogan's going to play. Those are our out-and-out attacking options, I'd say. I haven't put Bob there because Bob can also play centrally, so I am lumping Bob in with all the other midfielders. Obviously, it doesn't impact the goalkeepers and defenders. That's absolutely fine. So the players above Gundogan are players who I consider players who we must not really be accommodating too much for. The ones below, for example, I think that's more of an interesting discussion. But let's, for argument's sake, let's just pop City out in a team. So let's say that we've got, let's have Diaz central there. Let's have Akanji out on the right. And we could have a John Stone situation, could we? No, it probably doesn't make much sense to do that. Let's pop again. This is just for argument's sake. Obviously, Rodri's going to play. Obviously, we'll have Hall in there because Savio impressed so much. We can have Savio there. We'll also have Doku there again. This is more for illustration, so don't actually worry about the composition of the team, guys. KDB, Foden, and we'll slot in Kovacic. I know that doesn't make sense, but just bear with me. It's absolutely fine. So, how does Gundogan fit in here? So let's think about the roles that Gundogan would take on in this City side. Again, I don't really agree with people not really being not being interested in this transfer, because we've said for however long that we need a Gundogan replacement, we need a Gundogan heir, we need someone who can take the some of the burden away from Rodri across the entirety of the season, and we now have literally what in terms of a short-term solution is the perfect Gundogan replacement. Now suddenly that now becomes an issue. So I don't think that's necessarily accurate. So let's discuss that. Rodri shopping as a centre-back, interesting. As I say, no, this actually annoying me. This doesn't work. Let's have Stones in there because that was just annoying me. Right, this team now works. So the question becomes, where is Gundogan going to play for City? Well, first of all, we know exactly where he can play. This is where he played in the treble-winning year. He played as the one of the 8/10s on the left side, Kevin De Bruyne to his right. But we do also know that Gundogan is more than capable of filling in for Rodri as the lone six, or was able to do a couple of years ago. Anyway, he's going to be 34 now. Will he be able to do that physically? That's a question mark, but he is a player who obviously can play there. This is something that me and LB discussed yesterday. I actually think that for some games where Rodri isn't available, let's say Rodri gets suspended before an Arsenal game, it might be nice to have like a pivot of Gundogan and Kovacic in the midfield, because that would just be, so you'd have a Gundogan who we know can be Rodri on his own, but then a little bit more support with Kovacic in there. I think that could work out really, really nicely. So that's 3 roles that Gundogan's able to fulfill there. It's as we all know, this isn't new information, alongside Rodri, ahead of Rodri, but also instead of Rodri. So the signing makes total sense from a role perspective, and again, that's not new information, because guess what? Gundogan's a pretty good Gundogan replacement. That makes a lot of sense. The question then becomes, the practical question becomes, someone is going to miss out across the entirety of the season, because you're bringing in Gundogan, he's going to play a significant amount of games. He's not going to come and be an absolute... Stones is chilling in the opposite goal. Don't worry about what John Stones is doing. You're obviously bringing in Gundogan in the first season at least to get a significant amount of starts in the league and a significant amount of minutes in all competitions. The season after, it's potentially a different story. But someone ultimately is going to have to miss out, because there are a lot of players here who can play in midfield. Now, Bob can play more so on the wings, and I think that is where he will play the majority of this season when he comes back. So Bob's not necessarily so much of an issue. So let's just pop all the midfielders over here just so we can have an illustration of the predicament, the potential predicament it puts City in. So these are all players who can play centrally. And as you can see, there are a lot. How many is there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So we've got 9 players who you would say are more midfielders this season. If we're saying that, Bob and Grealish are more the wide options. I suppose Rodri as well, but technically Rodri's always going to play, like, his position's not in dispute. So realistically, these are the players who are challenging. The best case scenario in terms of how many other midfielders you can get on the pitch is if you drop one of the wide players and you do the false winger situation with a defender pushing up to the wide areas. So let's use Gvardiol in this instance. This gives us 3 slots to play with, basically. As I say, because if you have a wide player, then you have slightly less options, because then a defender's going to have to go somewhere in the midfield. So let's do best case scenario as an example. Witherspoon says the 3-4-2-1 shape will probably go away. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I don't even know what City are going to do this season, because we saw against Chelsea, and you'll have seen that if you saw my analysis video. We did a 3-1-6 situation. Whether that was just a specific case situation, not entirely sure. If you haven't left a like already on the video, guys, please leave a like on the video. If we go to last season, these are the... Hopefully, you guys can see this okay. Let me know if you can. These are the minutes from last season. I can always zoom in if needed, but it's this little... is that going to zoom in? There we go. It's this column here. As I say, oh gosh. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. So we can... and this is every player who got at least a minute last season. So McAtee here with his 1 minute is there. Now, the main source of minutes in respect of transference is obviously going to be a player who left last season. Where is he? Julian Alvarez. There he is. Is this an order of minutes? I think it is. Is it? He's not got as many as I thought he had. Oh, this is all comps, to be fair. Alvarez, over 3,000 minutes are up for grabs. So that's going to go back into the mixer. And as I say, those minutes are up for grabs now. So that there is wiggle room there. Some players are untouchable. Kevin De Bruyne, if we're thinking about, like, the main stars of the team, players who you realistically aren't going to get dropped, but for some ridiculous extreme circumstances, Kevin De Bruyne is a mainstay in the side. I would like to think that Foden's also a mainstay in the side, but there is going to be a conversation about that because of his versatility and utility, and that is maybe my biggest gripe with this transfer, which we will get into in a moment, is will Foden's midfield usage go down compared to last season? It shouldn't do, as we'll get into. I'm going to also stick around because I'm going to propose a potential team, which I think is going to be like just ridiculous and brilliant. And I don't even know really where the weaknesses are, but we shall get into that. So yeah, Foden's a question mark. The main battleground, or the main people who should be threatened by Gundogan's presence, are Nunes, probably McAtee, O'Reilly, probably not Ricolas because he's more of a hybrid player, so I don't consider him at threat, and again, he's only 19, so I don't think that's much of an issue anyway in respect of his development. I personally don't think Lewis is a problem, so I'm going to park him over there. Bernardo, likewise, he can play like anywhere. I'm not being funny, but Bernardo's not a player that I feel is necessary to prioritise in respect of minutes in any event. He's also incredibly versatile. If we don't end up signing a striker, we know he can play false nine as well. So again, I don't know if Bernardo's that much of an issue. And again, he can play out on the right if needed. Not ideal, but he can play out on that. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. This is the collection of players who I feel are most at threats, if that's the word. Missing Cancelo. He's not involved in this squad. Get Cancelo out of here. And I put them in sort of like range of... Actually, yeah. Right. From top to bottom, I'm just doing this on the fly. These are the people who I think will be impacted the most, with the people at the top being impacted the least, or should be impacted the least, people at the bottom impacted more so. The elephant in the room is Matheus Nunes, isn't it? Now, before the Gundogan signing, which hasn't even been announced yet. Imagine all this doesn't even happen. But again, for argument's sake, we're assuming it is going to happen because it seems like it is. Even before the Gundogan rumours that he might be signing, I was struggling to find a home for Nunes in the centre of the pitch because there is so much quality here in respect of central players. There is Kovacic, Foden, Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo, Lewis when he plays at 8, Bob when he plays at 10. There is far too much central competition for Matheus Nunes before we bring in another midfielder. So I don't know what Nunes is going to do, to be honest. I think that I can't see a world in which he gets that many central minutes this season. I can only really see him having a City future, I've said this many times before, if he can develop his game so that he can become a wide player, as he did against Bournemouth and Luton last season, or could he do, for example, what Lewis did against Chelsea the other day? Could he start at right back and then venture forward into midfield? Big question marks about that. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. Could he do like a Fabian Delph situation? Whether he can or not, I don't think is relevant. I'm not being funny, but, and this sounds really harsh, I don't really care about Matheus Nunes' minutes at City, to be honest. He is a very good player, but why would we be sacrificing the minutes and the development of Rico Lewis or a Bob or a Foden or whoever for the sake of Matheus Nunes? I think you could say he's like the right player at the wrong time. He's coming to City at a time where we don't need him, and this is why it makes the signing really. It makes the signings of the fact that we signed both Kovacic and Nunes in the same window. It makes it very, very unusual. But either way, I think that this basically spells... Gundogan coming in my opinion, spells the end for Nunes as a central player. Or outside of... But again, we can say, oh, but give him some minutes in the cup games. Yeah, but do you not want to give McAtee a go in those positions? Or Rico Lewis? Or Oscar Bob? Even O'Reilly? It's hard to envisage a world where Nunes survives this transfer, again, from a central City perspective, just because of all the quality and depth that we do have. And Gulat says, don't forget Echeverri, who's another central player who we're apparently bringing in January. So I just don't know. I'm willing for... I'm not going to give up on him entirely in that there is a world for him as a utility option, and if someone can provide me with a reasonable argument of how he does last centrally in the City side, I'm totally willing to listen to that. But it's unless I'm missing something really obvious, it's really hard for me to justify including him in any version of City. O'Reilly, can someone please fact check this for me? How old is O'Reilly? Is he 17 or is he 19? Can someone please confirm that for me before I proceed on this point? If someone could let me know in the chat, that'd be really helpful. And again, guys, if you could leave a like on the video, that would be great. Terrence says, when I was young, I had a poster of a semi-naked woman on my wall. That's nice, mate. I've got a picture of a bald man with a cigar and Mancini and David Silva, etc. Because why not? Can anyone please confirm for me how old is Nico O'Reilly? Anyone in the chats? I can just. I should probably Google it myself, shouldn't I? Oh, there we go. Scottish City fan says 19. Okay, great. Okay, so he's a bit older. Okay, so he's 19. Okay, good. O'Reilly is. Oh, I've not seen nearly enough of him, but let's be realistic here. He's not good enough to start in the Premier League for City because there's Foden and De Bruyne and Kovacic and Bernardo and Lewis and Bob, etc., etc. I'm not so O'Reilly's probably not going to get, even before the Gundogan signing, O'Reilly was not going to get that many minutes anyway. I don't feel like that this is an issue. He's more of a long-term development player. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue, so that's fine. He can go in the I'm not concerned pile. 14 years old, brilliant. The player who I do think it is, because he's young enough where it doesn't really matter, I think, if he does have a future at City. The player who I think it could negatively impact the most, however, is McAtee, because he's not going to... for example, I'd be surprised if McAtee got like more than 5 Premier League starts this season before the Gundogan signing. He's, I believe, 22 years old, so he's not at that stage in his development of O'Reilly. He's had a full season in the Premier League with Sheffield United as well. So in an ideal world, he would be getting more minutes. So that is the question, and that is maybe the biggest negative of bringing in Gundogan, in that it would probably stunt the minutes opportunity of McAtee. It's also going to stunt the minutes opportunity of Kovacic, but again, Kovacic is a player who is in his 30s. He's going to be perfectly happy with rotating anyway. So again, Kovacic is probably going to get less minutes. You might say that's harsh because of how good he was against Chelsea, for example, in the opening Premier League game of the season. Even against United in the Shield, I thought he was really good. But it's not an issue if Kovacic gets less minutes and becomes that rotational player anyway, because that's what he was last season in large part. He wasn't a guaranteed starter throughout the entirety of the season, so I don't think that's necessarily an issue. And even with McAtee, it's not too much of an issue either. Again, based on his age and based on his development, there's still plenty of time for that to work out. The question mark I do have is Phil Foden, because this is a player I'm willing to compromise on the minutes of Nunes, McAtee, O'Reilly, etc., etc. I'm not willing to compromise on anything to do with Phil Foden, to be honest. So if there is a situation where it shouldn't boil down to this, we're just going to do this for argument's sake. If it did boil down to a situation of one of Gundogan and Foden plays centrally, and for whatever reason we settle on Gundogan and Foden is shoved out to the wings, then that I'm not happy with that. And if Gundogan coming in makes that a reality, then it becomes a bad deal in my opinion. However, it shouldn't come to that. Why? Because cell phones, as Musty shut up. Because, guys, I'm going to give you a team which is going to be absolutely sensational. Don't you worry about it. This is what is going to happen, okay? Or this is what could happen. I should have all these players here. So, we are going to do a slightly different situation with Gundogan. We are going to play him deeper. Slightly deeper. Not as a 6, not as an out-and-out 6. He's still going to have license to roam forwards and crash the box, because we know how wonderful he is as a box-to-box player. But City's treble-winning team, Gundogan was positioned more so over here. I'm going to propose we drop him slightly further back. These are for games when Gundogan starts, by the way. This could be our best team, maybe. Obviously, Rodri is going to play, and that's absolutely fine. Now, immediately, that is a 3-2 base in respect of that back 5, if you will. So giving Gundogan a slightly deeper on-ball role than a couple of seasons ago, which I think is fair and reasonable given he's aging. That is very, very nice. That's a very, very lovely back 5. I'm very happy with that as a concept. Gundogan's basically just, in my opinion, just an improvement on Kovacic in nearly every single area, so I don't have an issue with dropping Kovacic in that respect. The front 3 can, we'll definitely have Haaland in there, of course. Let's have Savio in there, because he was so good in those 45 minutes, wasn't he, against Chelsea, and Bob is obviously injured. Kevin De Bruyne in his usual position. And the good thing about this is that Savio's presence will push back the opponent, and that gives De Bruyne a bit more space. Ring up Pep and ask him what he's going to do. I'll get right on that, mate. I mean, you could even do a thing where if you're going to do like a 3-1, if you think about like what we did against Chelsea, and you'll notice, again, if you watch my video, you could have like, in some games, you could have Foden where De Bruyne was positioned against Chelsea, where he's technically in midfield, but then he floats off to the left to cause those issues for the opponents out of possession shape. And then Bernardo Silva, you can swap out for Gundogan, for example, and then Rodri in for Kovacic. So that's another alternative if you want to go back to that system. You don't need... Now, Foden starting from left wing, off ball, but as we know based on last season... Yeah, exactly, Musty. But as we know, based on last season, that doesn't... Just because you start from left wing, if you get the system right in respect of using the false winger system correctly, Phil Foden actually goes into the centre. Now, this, guys, is looking pretty damn tasty. We know that Gvardiol isn't a winger, obviously, but I can definitely see some games, maybe a really important game, for example, like away against, I don't know, Arsenal or Liverpool, that looks like a really, really threatening, dangerous team. You've got Foden and De Bruyne in the midfield, and you've got Gundogan there supporting Rodri. You've still got a 1v1 threat in respect of Savio. We know that Gvardiol's end product in the final third isn't the best, but he's still a wonderful on-ball player. And the important thing, as we know from the false winger system, is that when Gvardiol pushes up, he's got a wonderful connection with Phil Foden. They often interchange, and do that. So that could be a beautiful situation to be in. Again, people saying, what about Doku? What about X player? It's... Don't forget, we have like over 60 games in the season coming up. It's not a case of you must play like this every single time. It doesn't matter who you play, someone misses out. So it's irrelevant saying what about X player, what about Y player. There is no, unless it's like Haaland or De Bruyne or like, Rodri, Foden, like the true stars of the team. There are players who know that they are competing for a place, and they know full well that they will have to rotate and wait their turn and bide their time. Conversely, you could just change it. You could swap out Savio for Doku. You can play an entirely different system. You could drop, because again, De Bruyne is not going to play every single game, and Gundogan is not going to play every single game. Whilst Gundogan is a very important player, he's in his... And Gundogan will also be an important player this season. They are players who are in their mid-30s now. And they will need to be managed. And their minutes will need to be managed. They will need to be rested and rotated. There will be plenty of opportunities for everyone else, in which case you could have... If we just do that for a moment, you could have Stones coming up and do his thing. In fact, let's rest Rodri for argument's sake. I mean, we've got Gundogan alongside Stones now, and we're giving, I don't know, we can also give fucking, in fact, in that situation, we wouldn't even need to give a De Bruyne a rest, would we? There we go. That's another example. And then from there, you can play a Grealish, or you can play, you can play a Doku, or you can play a Grealish. And let's say that, Gundogan just gets dropped and Rodri now is available and you want to rest De Bruyne, maybe you can play Rico Lewis there. Or if it's, or you can play Bernardo Silva there. Or if, again, Foden's not going to start every single game. There needs to be an understanding of rotation and that there's only some players who are guaranteed starters at City. Haaland's one of them, in terms of the past the midfield and beyond. Haaland's one of them, and Rodri's one of them, and Foden should be one of them, and De Bruyne would normally be one of them, but if we're now trying to get more realistic in respect of we need to give him more of a rest, there will be some games where he just needs to be rotated and dropped, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for that all season. So, in sum, there is, I think the positives massively outweigh the negatives. And there are so many different formulas. You could have, again, if there's a game where De Bruyne is injured or isn't available, or you just want to rest him, you could have a team like that as well. There are so many options for City. You could have the dime as well. Someone just said in the chat. Yes, absolutely. In fact, this is literally what City did. That was City's Champions League winning midfield ultimately. With Stones going to right central midfield, Gundogan left, and Foden at the tip of that diamond. The only true losers in respect of this deal, assuming that, Gundogan isn't made like, a star elite player and must start every single game, that would be madness. The only true losers in respect of this transfer are McAtee, who I am a little bit concerned about, but we did need to bring Gundogan in anyway, so hopefully he will get some minutes in the cups. Again, in those cups, for example, maybe rest Rodri. Why not have Gundo at 6 and bring in McAtee and rest Foden and play Bob? Oh, what a fun midfield this is! Hello, look at what we've just stumbled upon. Look at that! How fun's that? That's tasty, and that works off ball as well because Lewis goes to right back. Midfield pairing can be like Gundogan, McAtee. Again, think of like, a League Cup game against fucking Bradford, for example. Look at that as a fun midfield four. Gundogan, McAtee, Bob, Lewis. That would be really, really nice. So even with McAtee, I don't see that as being a main loser. This is the main loser in respect of the minutes issue. There is no place for Núñez in this squad unless he totally changes his game in respect of the positions he can play. The main one I can envisage, the main string he needs to add to his bow is what Lewis does, where he starts from right back, but then he goes into midfield. I don't know whether has he got the skill set to do that? I've obviously never seen him in that role. It's a massive question, but it's not an issue. I'm sorry, if Núñez doesn't play like at all this season, I'm not being funny. Does anyone care? That sounds so harsh. But are there any massive Matheus Núñez lovers out there? I think he's a good player, but I'm not willing to compromise the rest of the team so that he can get some minutes in. I thought that his purchase was a borderline mistake, given the context of what was going on at the time. It was blatantly a panic buy. If anyone doesn't think it was a panic buy, by the way, it just so blatantly was. We were after Bellingham, didn't get him. After Rice, couldn't get him. After Paquetá, couldn't get him. So we panicked and we got Matheus Núñez. If we got one of those players in that transfer window, we would not have Núñez now. And I'm not having a go at Matheus Núñez again, because I think he's a wonderful footballer. Well, wonderful is maybe a bit too far. He's a good footballer, and he could have a place in the City squad, but it's not. What's the date today? It's 20th of August, 2024. I don't think he's got a space in this team, to be honest. If anyone has got any questions about that, please let me know. Are there any players you are concerned about? Bree says, I care in much as I think we should sell him as best for us and him. Yes, absolutely. I'm not having a go at Núñez because, again, I need to reiterate, I like him as a footballer. I do think he's got a very good skill set for a certain team in a certain squad dynamic and setup. It is just not City's in 2024. I believe we signed him for £50 million on a 5-year deal. If someone wants to fact check me on that, that's fine. If City could sell him for like £40 million, that would, as far as my own accounting knowledge goes, I believe that would make that like not a loss from an accounting perspective, from an amortization perspective. He's still got a £40 million book value. If it was 50 million on a 5-year deal, 1 year's transpired, so still 40 million left. So if we can sell him for around 40 million pounds, we've actually not made a loss on that signing. It also obviously would take our wages down well, if Gundogan comes in, I imagine the wages would go up net, but you see what I mean. It gets his wages off the books. That's what I'm trying to say. I just don't know who buys him. I know that he was like linked with Saudi at one point, and he apparently said, no, I want to stay and fight for my place or whatever, which is admirable. But you would think that he would now have if this Gundogan deal goes over the line, you would think that he's going to have a chat with himself and his agents and his family, etc., about real and Pep maybe, and go like, right, realistically, I am not
getting into this team. I'm not a young player. I think Núñez is 24, 25. He's not a child. He's not like, in his early 20s, unless I'm mistaken there. So it's not even like, I can just wait a year or two and I'll develop and then I'll get into the team. Surely the writing is on the wall in that respect. So, again, I think the biggest loser is Núñez. He's either got to go, adapt his game, or be resigned to never playing significant minutes. Again, how many minutes did he get last season? 1,200. So that's less than Rico Lewis, for example. Less than Ortega in all comps. Less than Grealish, who was injured for like a million years last season and still less minutes than him. It's just... It's not realistic to expect him to have a future at City, to be honest. It's not a thing. That's my tactics board, guys. I'm now going to go over there. We're still going to have a chat, so stick with me. And we're just going to have like a general chit-chat about all those issues. Now, I'll answer your guys' questions over there. So I shall see you over there.
And we're back over here. Lovely. If you are new, please make sure to subscribe. Núñez is 26 in 1 week. So he's... So he's not young. He's 26. Well, let's just double check that. Let's fact check that, shall we? Let's double check that. I don't want to make myself a fool. Don't make myself look like a fool. I mean, I do that anyway, but you get me. Can that come over here, please? Yes, thank you. Mateus Núñez. How old is he? 1998. Yeah, he's 25. Yeah, he's going to be 26 next week. He's not 24. He's 26. He's not young. He's actually older than I thought he was. I thought he was 24. So he is... Again, this is not a young player that we're talking about. This is someone who needs to be ready now. Is that realistically going to happen at City? No. So I think that, again, if someone wants to offer me a future for Núñez outside of he totally adapts his game and becomes a utility winger / fullback, let me know. If someone can provide me a reasonable justification of this is how I'll get central minutes, let me know. Because again, he's competing with Foden, De Bruyne, and Rodri, and Gundogan, and Kovacic, and Lewis, and Bob, who are all better than him in a City shirt. And that would also get in the way of McAtee as well. You can even throw in O'Reilly in there as well. But I even said Bernardo Silva. Where does he play? When does he play? How often does he play centrally? He doesn't. So that is a thing. I'm not on mute. I hope Mateus Núñez can prove himself this season. If not, maybe we need to find a new midfield. Well, don't you say a new midfield? I don't quite know what you mean there. Yeah. And let's talk about this. But this is a good point that you've raised here. There's this. Some people are peddling this idea that City are that he's done, that he's finished or washed as a footballer, Gundogan. If you speak to Barca fans, Gundogan was one of their best players last season. And he was included in the La Liga Team of the Year, as I understand it. And I watched the Euros, and I know how good Gundogan was. This is not Manchester United bringing back a finished, selfish Ronaldo who actually negatively impacts the squad dynamics. I don't care how many goals Ronaldo got in that season. Ronaldo was bad that year, okay? He negatively impacted the team. Gundogan is not that player. He's obviously not going to be as good as he was 2 years ago because that's how decline in footballers works. But this idea that he's going to come in and be a massive liability and a massive burden is wrong. It's just wrong. He's not like got like the pace of a Demichelis. He's still got his wonderful box crashing ability, his wonderful touch, his wonderful game IQ and intelligence. This is a brilliant signing for City just from that individual perspective. Never mind the finances of it. If we bring him in for free, which is apparently what's going to happen because Barca just wants rid of his wages. I don't know what Barcelona are doing, by the way. They're absolutely horribly wrong club. I don't know what they think they're doing. It just makes total sense to me. It's too good to not do it. It's a free transfer. Obviously, you're going to have to pay him some wages, of course. But in the grand scheme of things, it is not a lot at all in respect to the negatives. We discussed the negatives, being that Nunes isn't going to get the game time. I don't see that much of a negative, to be honest. As long as Foden isn't shoved out to the wings, and he shouldn't be, because we know based on last season that shouldn't happen, there is a team which we constructed, which includes Gundogan and Rodri and Foden and De Bruyne all in midfield at the same time, and it still works and it's still balanced. So it can definitely work and it can definitely be a thing. And that's the first year. And as long as this is a stopgap, that's got to be, as I said at the top of the show, this has got to be a stopgap solution. The season in 2020, at the start of the 25-26 transfer window, we must be bringing in his proper long-term heir and replacement. Someone who is in their 20s rather than their 30s. Someone who is an actual replacement. Now, whoever that will be, it doesn't matter as long as it's the right player. Hopefully then, City will be like, right, now we need to spend big this summer. Because I really thought this was going to be the summer where we spent loads of money, but I also thought that a couple of players were going to go out of the window. We haven't had a massive window since 17-18. It just feels like that's round the corner at some point. We've got, for example, like De Bruyne might be leaving. Gundogan would be 35 at that point. Kyle Walker would probably be leaving as well. It feels like there's going to be a big summer coming up. And we haven't spent... I know people like to joke about City spending a load of money, but if you look at, like the transfer spending tables, City are not that high up in respect of net, given how many sales that we do make. And in fairness, even in terms of gross, I don't even know what the figures would be in the past few years. It feels like we haven't had a truly explosive window in a minute, but we've got lots of players reaching the end of their careers. If we think about this time next year, as I say, De Bruyne might be gone, and Walker might be gone, Kovacic might be gone, Nunes might be gone, Gundogan will be more of a squad option at that point. So that's at least 4 players, maybe even 5 that we need to think about replacing, whether that's with academy players, like McAtee, etc., Echeverry, another youth player, or whether that's spending big. And I think that would be the time to spend big, as I say, on a Wharton, a Bruno Guimaraes next summer. That would be a lovely situation, would it not? As long as it's a short-term thing. Let's spend this window. Great question. Let's have a look, shall we? Go follow Blue City Brian on Twitter if you haven't already done so, because he's got a really good graph. That's the word I'm after, a graph. If you're watching on Twitter, by the way, thank you so much, but I can't see your comments over there, so please come over to the YouTube if you want to get involved. Let's have a look, see, because as I say, so when did he do that? So that's spending, is it? Total. Oh, so that's gross. So 35 million for City, because again we've only bought Savio, haven't we? So let's see where his net spend graph is. I think it's this one. Here we go. So we are winning the net spend trophy as it stands. 100 minus 120 million pounds. So we've made, in respect of transfers in this window alone, we've made 120 million pounds, which is the best in the league by a fair margin. It's not even close. The next best is Wolves at minus 66 million. Then Liverpool minus 30 million. We also know that City, in this window, City could spend hundreds of millions of pounds if they wanted to and still keep in line with PSR parameters, profit and sustainability rules. We can spend a lot of money. We know that. So it just, as I say, it just feels like there's going to be a big summer. I thought it was going to be this summer. Maybe it makes more sense for it to be next summer, as I say, given the aging names that I just mentioned. And that's potentially a very exciting situation. So in sum, I'm really happy with Gundogan coming back, if indeed that is confirmed. If it doesn't happen now, if it falls through at the last second now, I don't know what I'll do with myself. There are some negatives, of course there are, but the positives heavily outweigh it. We knew and we know that Rodri needs support, Rodri needs help, and we know that we need another player in that midfield, ideally, who is an all-phase midfielder and who is going to be able to take some of that passing burden off De Bruyne. I do think that Foden will be doing that this season as well, but this isn't a case of we sign like a project or we sign someone who needs like a few weeks or a few months or a season or two to get used to the system. What City are signing in Ilkay Gundogan is the definition of the perfect piece of the puzzle in a one-season perspective. Because Gundogan obviously knows his teammates, and he knows the manager, he knows the club, he knows the philosophy, and he knows exactly how to play Manchester City football in a number of roles. There will be no learning curve. There will be no case of, oh, just give him time. No, Gundogan will come into the team and it will not look like he left. Because Gundogan, in August 2024, is still one of the best box-to-box midfielders in the world. In the world. We all saw the Euros. Hopefully people saw him at Barcelona last season. He has not gone down levels compared to the treble-winning year at all. He is still a wonderful, wonderful player, and again, still one of the best in the world in a vacuum, never mind within the context of slotting into City's team. I didn't even contemplate this being an option. And just to wrap it up, because I want to end around 3:30. To wrap this up, my Premier League predictions before the a few days ago, I was genuinely 50-50 on City Arsenal. I couldn't quite pin it either way. And the reasoning for that was because I will only say that the City will win if we sign a Gundogan replacement, because I know that is the missing piece of the puzzle. I would be staggered if City don't win the title now. I think Gundogan coming back just makes City's squad perfectly balanced from a profile perspective. And it gives City so many more options in terms of how they can set up and how they can play, and the construction of the players in terms of the rotations they're in. I just can't see how City don't win the title now, because that just takes City to another level from a balance perspective and also just from a squad quality perspective. Savio coming in for Alvarez is an improvement. Whether you think Alvarez is a better player than Savio is irrelevant, because Alvarez in midfield is not good. Savio out wide is good. Savio in for Alvarez is an improvement. Gundogan in is a massive upgrade and improvement, and it takes City to hopefully another level. We should be aiming for mid-90s points as a minimum, I think, if this deal does happen. Realistically, we should be looking at high 90s, I think. But I think that, anywhere from like 94 through to 98 is a realistic expectation in terms of points this season in the Premier League. Unless Arsenal do a madness, in my opinion, I don't think that they can they can match that. Unless they bring in unless they have some more transfer activity, let's say. But there's no guarantee that's going to happen. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like, if you come over from LB's show and you've enjoyed this stream, please make sure to leave a like on the video, because it is free and does really, really help. Make sure to subscribe as well. As I say, if you are new, everyone needs to leave a like on this, though. If you do want to go the extra mile, you can always become a YouTube member. You can do so for £3 a month by clicking the little join button or the pinned comment, the link in the pinned comment, if you would like to. You don't have to. A like is more than enough, but if you would like to go the extra mile, you're more than welcome to. I say shout out again to LB for the raid. We've had wonderful numbers today, and it's a beautiful time. If you, after this stream, actually, if you haven't already done so, stay on this channel, go and watch my analysis video from the Chelsea game yesterday, where I break down how, in my opinion, Doku broke down Chelsea's block, and I discuss City's 3-1-6 formation. I discuss the shape in and out of possession. What were the pros? What were the cons? As I say, I just analysed the game with a particular lens on Doku's performance. So go watch that video after this stream. It's like 10 minutes long, and I think it's a pretty good video. So make sure to go do that. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. As I say, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will see you. Oscar Bob is already telling colleagues he expects to be back in early December. We'll love to see that. Maybe back to full sharpness of fitness come January, maybe. But there we go. Thank you so much for joining me. As I say, I'll actually be back tonight, probably for a podcast live stream with my Manchester United friend. As you can see, there's the branding. It's called the Knobcast. It's a great name. We'll be discussing all things City and United for like 45 minutes or whatever, and it should be a fun time. So that should be from 7 p.m. England time, so make sure to join me for that as well. And if it goes well, like if we get enough people watching the show, then we'll keep doing them on the YouTube. If you guys don't enjoy them, then we'll stop doing them, but hopefully you guys will enjoy my back and forth with Gasky, my Man United friend. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you all tonight for the Knobcast. Notification bell on. Goodbye, guys, and thank you.